Once upon a time, in the land of the free and the home of the tax loophole, there were two grand ideological beasts locked in an eternal battle for the soul of a nation. On one side, the Republicans, the self-anointed guardians of capitalism and the Constitution, defenders of bootstrap mythology and the God-given right to hoard wealth like Smaug on a pile of dragon's gold. On the other, the Democrats, champions of the working class, so long as they weren't expected to actually work too hard to protect them. Believers in social safety nets, civil rights, and the great American experiment of government intervention when the market inevitably decides to eat its young. And theoretically, this was the great American dichotomy: conservatism versus progressivism, small government versus a robust social contract, rugged individualism versus collective responsibility, a balance, a dialectic, a necessary friction that kept the republic from careening too far into oligarchy or anarchy. In practice, a multi-decade orgy of corporate lobbying, cynical fear-mongering, and policy convergence so profound that if you squint just a little, you might mistake the whole damn thing for a WWE match. One side in blue tights, the other in red, both collecting paychecks from the same billionaire sponsors. So let's talk about real policy differences, what they're supposed to be, what they actually are, and how over the last 50 years both parties have mutated into parodies of themselves. Once the Republican Party was a party of fiscal restraint. Government was to be pruned like a bonsai tree, kept small and efficient, lest it become a sprawling beast sucking the marrow from the working man's bones. This meant tax cuts, deregulation, and a deep, unshakable belief that the free market was a benevolent deity that, if left unmolested, would provide prosperity to all. The Democrats, on the other hand, were the architects of the New Deal, the Great Society, the Civil Rights Act. They saw government not as a burden, but as a mechanism to ensure that when the market decided to cast workers aside like cigarette butts, someone was there to pick them up and remind them that they were, in fact, still human beings. But look at them now. Republicans still love tax cuts, but only for corporations and billionaires. They have gutted government services while simultaneously bloating the Pentagon to grotesque proportions, proving that small government was always a lie. What they meant was government small enough to fit inside a woman's uterus, but large enough to bomb a small country before breakfast. Meanwhile, Democrats still claim to believe in the social contract, but they have been so terrified of being labeled socialist that they now champion the most watered-down, means-tested, technocratic half measures imaginable. Universal health care? Too radical. Free public college? Let's talk about tuition assistance programs instead. A living wage? Maybe by 2050. Their commitment to social welfare is real, but only insofar as it doesn't upset the donor class. But if there's one arena where the two parties have achieved perfect, almost poetic symmetry, it is in their unwavering commitment to endless war. The Republicans, ever the champions of military dominance, have long argued that the well-funded war machine is the backbone of national security. The Democrats, once the party of anti-war movements and diplomatic engagement, have quietly folded into the war machine's warm embrace, ensuring that no administration, red or blue, ever lets a good conflict go to waste. You see, Reagan meddled in Latin America, Bush and Cheney lit the Middle East on fire, Obama perfected drone warfare, and Biden signed off on bombings with the same ease as ordering coffee. Republicans sell war with flag-waving patriotism, Democrats with hand-wringing humanitarianism, but the missiles fall just the same. And once upon a time, Democrats were the party of labor unions, fair wages, and protections for the working class. FDR built a social safety net so strong that even the most rabid capitalists had to grudgingly admit it was keeping the country from eating itself alive. Meanwhile, Republicans embraced the free market, championing deregulation and corporate autonomy as the ultimate engine of prosperity. But Reaganomics changed everything. The GOP, armed with a trickle-down fairy dust and an Ayn Rand contempt for the poor, embarked on a crusade to dismantle labor protections, cut corporate taxes, and convince middle-class Americans that their true oppressors weren't billionaires stripping their jobs overseas, but a single mom on food stamps. And the Democrats, well, they got tired of losing. Bill Clinton decided to prove that he could out-Republican the Republicans. He gutted welfare, deregulated Wall Street, and helped pave the way for the 2008 financial crisis. By the time the dust settled, both parties were dancing in the same corporate tune. Just one had a slightly jazzier rhythm. But oh, where the parties seemed to diverge most sharply. The GOP, having fully embraced the culture war, now fashions itself as the last bastion of Christian nationalism, hell-bent on reversing every social gain of the last century. Abortion bans, anti-LGBTQ laws, book bans, any policy that stokes fear and division among their base is fair game. The Democrats, for their flaws, have at least stood firm on issues of civil rights. They have defended reproductive freedom, LGBTQ plus rights, and racial justice, though often in performative, milquetoast ways that never seem to cost much politically. But even here, the GOP's rabid culture war isn't about principle. It's a smokescreen. While they whip their base into a frenzy over drag queens and critical race theory, they continue cutting taxes for billionaires and gutting environmental protections and handing public money to private corporations. And what do Democrats do? They counter with righteous indignation, but often without action. They campaign on protecting rights, but hesitate to actually enshrine them in law when they have power. They treat civil rights as a campaign slogan rather than a legislative priority. And the real story of the last century isn't just that the parties have changed, it's they've both abandoned their supposed principles in favor of consolidation of power. The Republicans, once the party of limited government, have embraced authoritarianism. The Democrats, once the party of the people, have become the party of the donor class. Elections are fought over social issues, while the ruling class, regardless of party, continues the great American tradition of looting the treasury, handing taxpayer dollars to corporate interests, and ensuring that neither the working class nor the poor ever get close to power. The illusion of choice is maintained by the fact that, yes, one party is objectively worse, one party wants to actively strip you of your rights, while the other at least pretends to care, but the game itself remains rigged. There is no grand ideological battle anymore, just different shades of complicity. And so, what is left? What is left when those who see the game despair, apathy, cynicism? No, the answer is, and always has been, organizing pressure, and a refusal to let either party operate without accountability. The moment the American people remember that they, not corporations, are supposed to hold the real power is the moment this charade ends. But until then, enjoy the show. Red team, blue team, same arena, different slogans, same results. Defiance till death.